Hello, and
Hi.
welcome to our Sound Lab workshop, online video Zoom workshop. My name's Rebecca Vasmant,
My name's Laurie Pitt.
and we're going to just do a little bit of chat. We're going to introduce you to ourselves, who we are, what we do, and then give you guys some tips for getting into the music industry, and then we will answer some questions if anyone has any questions. Do you want to go first, Laurie, or shall I?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Laurie. I classify myself as a musician, a producer, a DJ, and a tutor. So I kind of do a bit of everything, and my main instrument is drums. I started playing drums at the age of 10. I just started learning private lessons, and I had some kind of classical and jazz backgrounds, and then as I grew a bit older, kind of my taste changed. I moved into more kind of punk rock and metal. I started making bands when I was, about 12, 14 with my friends. And I just kind of already liked a big range of music, so I tried to throw myself into as many different things as possible. One of the things I did was an after-school club that was set up by the council in York, where I grew up, and it was to learn African drumming, and we did West African Ghanaian drumming, and I was really lucky to have the opportunity, age 16, to travel to Ghana to learn drumming, and that sort of kindled my passion for West African rhythms and Ghanaian drumming, which has kind of been something that I've been interested in for since then, really. So I would say I've moved to Glasgow about 13 years ago, and one of the reasons I moved is for the music. I visited here when I was 16 and I fell in love with the city, and always knew that it had a good music scene, so I just kind of tried to immerse myself in it as much as possible. I joined lots of different bands. I haven't counted properly, but I think I've maybe been in about 50 bands. Some of them have only played one gig, or some of them might not even have played a single gig. But yeah, so just a real big mixture of stuff, mostly drumming, but also sometimes a few other instruments, synth, a tiny bit of guitar, producing electronic sort of stuff. So one of my bands, Golden Teacher, is probably the most kind of successful bands that I've been in. We actually stopped playing a few years ago now, but we released. We were around for a number of years, and we released 8 or 9 records. And we were really lucky. We went kind of to tour around the UK and Europe, and we even went over to the States for a couple of gigs. The idea of it was kind of like a dance music live band. So there's 6 of us. I was playing drums mostly, but percussion as well, and 2 singers, synths and keyboards. We were trying to kind of blend live instrumentation with more electronic dance music. It was really fun band to be in, but it was also quite stressful with 6 people. It was a lot to organise. I'm still in quite a few bands. There's a project that I do called the Modern Institute, and we've actually been going since 2009. So it's with a friend of mine who was also in Golden Teacher. It's now just the 2 of us. At one point it was 4, then 3, but it's been 2 for a while now. We've been playing, so for 11 years we've been going, and we've kind of changed a lot during that time. The sound's changed, the kind of live shows have changed. We're really lucky in 2018 to be asked to play at the Negi Negi Festival in Uganda, which is a really amazing electronic music festival in the heart of Uganda. And as well as playing, we stayed for a residency in the kind of studio that they have set up there. And we did a collaboration with some Tanzanian musicians, which came out on the Negi Negi label last year. So as well as being a musician, I also done kind of other stuff. So done a lot of work at the Green Door Studios, being a tutor. And one of these projects, we kind of helped set up a studio in Ghana which I kind of helped set up and run for a few months. So kind of giving people tuition on production and using the studio. We also made a few collaborative albums, or 2 collaborative albums with people young musicians in Glasgow and young musicians in Ghana. So those albums have come out on the Optimo label. So as well as being a musician and a tutor, I'm also a DJ. I started out, I kind of almost by accident. I didn't really intend to be a DJ, but I sort of started with my flatmate. They had a slot in the bar that he worked at. We actually started doing it every week. So my introduction was just kind of using basic computer with Tractor, but we did every week, which was kind of a really good start because it kind of throws you in the deep end of playing 4 hours. So from there I moved on. I started a monthly night in Nice and Sleazers, which actually ran for almost 8 years. It's now stopped. And then as well as that, done a number of nights around the city in venues like the Art School, Stereo, etc. When I've put on nights, I've always tried to get artists to do live sets, so either live electronic or even kind of full bands. So I really think that that's kind of a nice thing to see in a club. You don't always see it. It's kind of something a bit more exciting or different. So yeah, just personally DJing, I've kind of done my own night, but then also through the various bands that I've been in and been asked to do lots of different sort of guest mixes for like NTS and events and stuff like that. So yeah, I've kind of got an experience of that a little bit as well. And one of the nights that I had was called Dawn's Egg. It was at the Art School, and the idea behind it was to try and get people who had never DJed before to do their first DJ set in a big club environment. And it was a really fun project because it was everyone was really nervous, and it was nice. Everyone was in the same boat together. Just did 45 minutes sets, but they're all really good. I was really surprised at the quality. Everyone kind of pulled it out of the bag. But yeah, kind of just shows that even if you want to be a DJ, you just go for it. Often it just works. So yeah, that's probably enough about me for now.
Well, that was super interesting. Actually. I'm really grateful to have heard that. You've done some amazing things. That's amazing. Yeah. So shall I just tell some things about me? Yeah. Okay, so I'm Rebecca Vasmant, and I'm primarily a DJ. I always say this because I feel like this is the kind of main thing, but my main thing is that I'm just a music fan. So anything that really kind of enables me to like kind of dig into the passion, I'm happy with. So whether it be producing music or doing radio shows or playing records at festivals and clubs, or I've worked on a couple of projects with some live bands as well. It just really kind of plays into the passion, and that passion is that I love music. So I started DJing about 12 years ago. I initially did a course at college in Edinburgh for radio production because I thought that I wanted to work producing radio shows. And then I realised that I actually wanted to like play music to people. And I'd obviously been going clubbing already for a while at that time. So I decided, like everyone, I was going to buy a set of turntables with my student loan, which is not what student loan's supposed to be for, so don't copy me, everyone. But yeah, I bought decks with my student loan, started trying to teach myself how to DJ, but it didn't come easily. It was really difficult. It probably took me about 6 months before I managed to actually do one mix. And I remember at the time, I had a flatmate who was a boy, and he just managed to do it in less than 2 weeks, and it was really infuriating. But in a way, I kind of feel that when I finally did manage to do it, it was like more of a triumph, if you like, even though it didn't come naturally. So I taught myself how to mix, and when I finally managed to be able to mix 2 records together, I used to go out in Edinburgh to this club night called Split at Cabaret Voltaire that ran every Tuesday, and I just gave the promoter a mix CD and he asked me to play. So I played one Tuesday, and then he asked me, do you want to be resident? So then I was playing every Tuesday there, and it just kind of gradually escalated. I was playing in Edinburgh for maybe a year and a half most weekends, and then I started to get booked in Glasgow a bit. So I moved to Glasgow on a whim, and it was the best decision I ever made because Glasgow's got such an amazing music scene, so many like wide diverse range of musicians and producers and DJs, and it's like a really nice creative hub to live in. I guess it's quite inspiring, I always found. So I moved to Glasgow, started playing in Glasgow. I started running a record fair at the Sub Club, which enabled me to meet a lot of other kind of label owners, record collectors, things like that. And it kind of became this like big group of all of us who were passionate about just like playing records and collecting records. And that was really nice. So I did that for about 2 years. I then started to do a tour with, oh, sorry, I missed out a massive part. Just before I moved to Glasgow, my first proper kind of big achievement in my DJ career was that I got asked to be the tours resident for Ministry of Sound. So I toured all around the world for them and did maybe, I think it was like 46 countries. It was amazing, got to see loads of places. I was really young and kind of got thrust into it, and it was quite nerve-wracking going on my own. Like one day they called me and said, oh, we're looking for a resident who's a female, can you make us a mix? So I made them a mix, and then 2 days later they called me and said, right, you're the new resident, do you accept the job, kind of thing. And then literally the following weekend I was on a 5-city India tour, like the following week. It was crazy. It was great. I'm grateful for it. But then I moved on from that because I realised that the type of music that I was interested in was not necessarily the path that they were going down. So I chose to make the decision that I would stop working for them because I wanted to focus more on the music that I was passionate about. And sometimes when I did the tours for them, I'm sure you guys all know that Ministry of Sound are a certain sound for the brand, and I think I just didn't really fit because my music was maybe a bit different. So I left there, did my record fair, started doing gigs at the Sub Club. I met this Ghanaian band actually called Kaka, I can't pronounce it, Kakatiti, I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry guys, sorry everyone. So yeah, did the tour with them. We started writing some music together, and it's kind of like a fusion between like house music, techno, and their like traditional Ghanaian like rhythms and music and stuff. So we kind of combined my music and theirs and went to the top of Scotland for a month and just rehearsed and wrote music, and then we did a tour for the whole summer, so that was really fun. So that taught me about how it feels to tour with a band, because that was the first time I'd ever done that. So it was like sleeping in the back of vans, cooking on little camping stoves and all this. It was really fun. I loved it. One of the things I loved most was the fact that because we didn't speak each other's language, we just connected through food, dancing, music, and all that kind of thing. So I thought that was a really amazing experience thanks to music. So then I started to focus a lot more on jazz because I'm really passionate about jazz, and kind of before that I was doing like house techno and the project with the Ghanaian band, so it was kind of like house and techno stuff, and I always knew that I had a big passion for like jazz music and Latin and like well, obviously all types of African music, but more on the kind of jazz side of things. And so I decided to get the courage to just kind of stop doing as much house and techno and move over to focusing on jazz. And I'm super grateful that the Sub Club in Glasgow asked me to start doing an event which booked live jazz bands in the Sub Club, which has kind of not been done for a while, since maybe the acid jazz days in the 90s, and it was really fun. So I did that for a year and a half. So that was just pre coronavirus. And I also have been doing a radio show on a London radio station called Worldwide FM, where I get some bands to my house and we record sessions from the living room, and it's all this like kind of living room live session type vibe, and that's really fun. And I'm so grateful to have like met so many amazing people. And I've also been working on my own music, so I've made an album with 22 of the local jazz musicians, and I kind of met them all through off the back of meeting one and meeting another and meeting another, and then going to jazz gigs, and it's just been really nice. That was due to come out just before coronavirus, but sadly the label has stopped releasing new projects due to coronavirus, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, so that's been me up to now. I am working hard on making new music, trying to keep doing things all the time, and yeah, that's pretty much me. Laurie, are you still there? I think Laurie might be gone. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, so we were going to go through some advice on getting into the music industry. I don't mind starting if you like. So perhaps we might have a different experience because obviously you're male and I'm female, and there's been quite a lot of kind of media coverage on the whole like equality to do with male female in the music industry, and I think that when I started like 12 years ago was a very different experience to how things are now. So one thing that I kind of wanted to say was, if anyone is female or male or female identifying or whatever, if you want to get into the music industry, now's a really good time because things have really improved. Beforehand you might have had like 20% female bookings on like a festival lineup, for example, but now festivals try to make it policy that it's 50-50, which sometimes is hard, obviously, but now's a great time to get into it. There's loads of amazing females doing. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention one thing previously. I also work as a tutor for the amazing Sound Lab, which we all love, by the way, and I feel super grateful because it allows me to like share some of the things I've learned with some amazing young people. And myself and Laurie have done some workshops together, and it's really, really great. So if you are a young person and you want to get into the music industry, there's loads of things available to you. For example, lessons, for example, like mentorships and things like that. So it's a really good way to get like access into what you're doing, because I do remember that for me when I started out, it was really scary. And it kind of felt like getting into a world that I knew nothing about. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends who were in the music industry or anything. So yeah, if you want to do it, just go for it, basically. Some other advice that I would say is like, be totally true to what you want to do musically and don't be influenced by what you think you should do. Because for me, earlier on in my career, especially when I did the tour that I mentioned about with Ministry of Sound, it was of course great and I'm super grateful for it, but it was quite boxed in with what I could do musically. And when I made the decision to leave and do my absolute totally own thing, it was really scary because obviously at the time I had like backing from a big like really well-known brand, which enabled me to just have a tailor-made like touring all over the world, like being paid well and all that kind of thing. But the best decision that I ever made was to leave, because years later now I'm actually doing what I really truly want to do. So yeah, like don't just do what you think you should do, if that makes sense. Like do what is your passion and what you truly want to do. And like work hard is another piece of advice, because some people think like, oh, DJs, they just go to clubs on a Friday and Saturday and play. Yes, we do, but Monday through Friday we're also pretty much working full time. But like Monday through Friday is unpaid, but we have to do all these things to kind of make sure that we have bookings and that we're busy and that we do all our paperwork and that we do social media. Like another like I was going to say sadly, because we're the generation where we remember no social media, I think. Any of you guys that are watching this, imagine that. Imagine having no Facebook. Imagine that. It's just crazy. We used to have Bebo back in the day. What a flashback. So yeah, social media is obviously a really important part of promoting yourself and things like that. But it's really easy to get caught up in like comparing yourself, or just, you know, it can affect your mental health in a negative way. So use it for what you need it for and nothing else, is my advice that I should follow myself. So yeah.
Great. So I've got, I just kind of made a few notes, and I've kind of broken it down a little bit. So I've just got some little tips for people kind of wanting to get into DJing, and then some little tips for people maybe wanting to get into producing. So I think, for DJing, I think what's most important and sometimes gets overlooked is really you want to know your songs inside out. So like, if you don't know what you're DJing, it's going to be really hard for you to know where to go next. And I think a lot of people think that DJing is about kind of beat matching. It's about like getting one song to blend perfectly into the next. And I think whilst that's a great skill, and when you're learning, it's good to try and be able to do it, it's also something not to get stuck on, because there's lots of amazing DJs who don't beat match at all. And it's much more important to try and get some nice transitions. It doesn't matter about tempo. If it's working, what kind of the ideal thing when you're DJing is to try and create some sort of narrative and to kind of create a journey. So if you can kind of find some nice ways to blend in between, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same tempo. That's kind of more exciting often than just keeping it straight, kind of mixed in. In the same way about don't get hung up on beat matching, I would also say don't try and get hung up too much on equipment. I know I'm sitting here with CDJs, but it's they're like you can learn a lot just by using like a virtual DJ or something like that, even a free software like that. You get the basics. So just downloading something like that and working out what the EQ does, working out what the crossfader, things like that. It's the same on everything. So for when you're wanting to get into DJing, I think the best way is to try and start kind of small. Like if you can, see if you can get a bar gig. Can try giving demos to mixes to people, and then if you wanted to do more like a club night, I would say don't try and wait for someone to put you on. Try and just put on your own night and find like-minded people, so friends or other DJs, or even people you don't know. If you like their DJing, just ask them if you want to do a night together. And you can, well, coronavirus has stopped everything, but normally you could try it. There's some venues they give you free hire occasionally, or even some places they even can give you some money if it bring enough people, that sort of thing. But yeah, I guess just trying to work what you were saying, Rebecca. Just trying to find your own sound is really important. Don't try and follow trends. Just work out what makes your sort of DJing different from other people's. Don't just kind of say, oh, I want to put on a house and techno night, because I think there'll be so many people saying that. So try and work out what it is that you're trying to do and what you want to do. So yeah, that was the kind of DJ part. So yeah, I'll just quickly go what I've written down for the producers as well. So I think with producers, it's some similar things, I think. So again, like I was saying with the DJing, don't get bogged down with equipment when you're producing. So I think if you've got a laptop, like a decent laptop that's working, and then a set of speakers, that's really like the basics that you need to kind of start making music. You can download free like digital audio workstations. If you've got a Apple computer, you can get GarageBand for free, or you can use Cakewalk, I think, for PCs. And although these kind of programs are a bit more limited than Ableton, it's all kind of crosses over. So if you learn a lot of stuff on GarageBand, it'll all translate further down the line if you decide to switch. Just have fun and experiment. I guess that's the main thing. Don't worry about it. Try not to kind of get bogged down with creating a sort of perfect track. Just mess around and see what you come up with. Loops are really good for getting started with. So just downloading a loop pack, you can just drag and drop them into a file, into a song, and it's a really quick, easy way to get started. And then, yeah, I guess the other thing I was going to say is kind of more further down the line, if you're kind of getting into producing, it's quite nice to try and create your own sounds rather than just using the inbuilt ones. So trying to create your own kick drum is quite a good one. Starting from scratch, starting from just a sine wave, and then working out how to move it, change it around until you get something that sounds good. Yeah, and also I guess another thing that can be fun is try to remix songs, trying to make edits, or kind of sending songs between people. That can be nice because it's also a bit daunting sometimes trying to start something from scratch. You know, where how do I even make this track from the beginning? So if you're working on something that already exists, that can be a nice way to sort of get in the flow of doing things.
One thing that I would like to add to that, if that's all right, is that for me, when I decided that I wanted to start producing, sorry, I stopped myself because I would open Ableton and start trying to learn stuff and then get really frustrated at myself because I didn't know how to do things. So I like stopped myself by being so hard on myself, but like it is actually quite hard to learn how to make music. So it's not the type of thing that you just open it up and pick it up right away. So if you're finding it hard or you feel like it's taking a while, then just like keep doing it, because like often I wish that back in the beginning, because there was probably about 2 or 3 years where I would say, right, I'm gonna spend a few hours on Ableton again, and then I would do it and then leave it for months and then do it again. But if I just done it like in the beginning, then it would have made it a lot easier. So like you yourself can be like an obstacle, like your own confidence can be an obstacle, but if you just like don't think about it and just see it as like a computer game or something, and not a reflection upon yourself, then that might make things easier, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well it's important to just kind of remain positive and keep open to criticism, because it's always a journey. There's always, like, even the people who've been doing it for years and years, they still, with a program like Ableton, it's almost infinitely complex. There's still things that people are kind of working out, new ways of doing things. So you're always learning, and yeah, you don't expect to just kind of produce something you're really happy with straight away. It is just non-stop kind of learning and tweaking, and yeah, the most important thing I guess is having fun and just making sure you're still enjoying it.
I always remember, and this might be useful for anyone watching, that one of my friends, he is a Swedish pop music producer, and he is like 52 and he's been doing it since he was 19. He's literally been professionally making music all of his adult life, like for a job. And he said to me one day, you know, every single week I discover new things, because the technology is evolving all the time as well. So there's always something that you didn't know that your program did that you can discover. So even he still learns. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
All right.
Shall we have a little look at the question? I think there may be some questions in the chat.
Shall we do questions?
Okay, great. So, Sam, someone's asked, how has African music influenced your careers? Do you wanna answer that one? And then
so how has African music influenced your careers? Well, for me, massively, because a lot of the music that I was listening to or buying, you know, like the records I was buying was African music, and I think it really it really changed the way that I thought about things massively when I started working with the band from Ghana. It's probably the same for you when you went out and worked with some musicians. And it's just, to me, it was just absolutely fascinating how they have all these complex rhythms and time signatures, and they would do this thing where when they were drumming they would go slightly out of time to like create like a phase effect, and it was just insane. The band, it was a 12 piece, so there was 12 drummers, so it was like really powerful, like 12, you know. And to me that's completely changed moving forward how I see music, and how I like the way that I think about my DJ sets, or even the way that I think about making music, because it's like I just saw how they were doing things and how they were using rhythms and time signatures and things like that. So like in regards to it influencing my my career, like, yeah, it's influenced it massively and inspired me massively, and I'm grateful, very grateful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a similar way, kind of, I went, like I mentioned before, I went when I was 16 and we were learning Ghanaian drumming, and yeah, it was just totally blown away by the music. It was so powerful. So yeah, yeah, I just think that there's, yeah, I like try and incorporate some kind of polyrhythmic ideas into the music that I do sometimes, and yeah, I think I've been really lucky to be able to do some collaborations with people there, and it's just been really nice. Kind of, I think a lot of people kind of as well, the singing, they really kind of go for it. I know I'm not really a singer, but one thing that I always kind of find really amazing was people they're not really that shy there. They kind of just really like go for it, and I think that's a really good ethos to try and encapsulate when you're making music, rather than kind of worrying about, oh, is this right, is this right? They just go for it, and even if it's not right, it doesn't really matter, because it's more the passion is really like strong in everything that they're doing. Yeah. So I think should we there's another question. Shall I ask? Yeah. So someone's asking, have any of you done online gigs, and do you think this is the future for live music? Shall I answer that quickly?
Yeah, you can go first. I'll go second.
Okay. I have done one live gig. It was actually at the beginning of lockdown. It was maybe like a week into the lockdown. It was okay. It was okay, but we had internet problems, and the kind of jittering I think we had about 60 people tuned in at the beginning, and then this kind of jittery kind of got rid of 90% of them. So it's not great experience. I really hope it's not the future of live music, because I really think there's nothing like being at a gig, and I'm sure that some form of live music will be happening again in the not too distant future, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Who knows? But yeah, obviously I think there can be some great online things, but I think it's not really the same.
Yeah, for me, have you ever done any online gigs, and do you think it's a future for live music? Firstly, I absolutely hope it's not the future for live music. I think that like the playing gigs to people makes you feel a sense of like being connected to like a room full of people, and when you do online gigs, like people can comment and things like that, but and it is a certain level of kind of being connected to people, but it's just not the same. It's not the same. Like it's a shared experience, and like when you go to a gig and see a band, or go to a festival or something like that, I always think that one of the things that's really amazing about clubs and festivals and gigs is that every person that's like standing at that concert is the same. Like it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter anything. Everyone's there to see that band, so you're just immediately equal. And I don't think there's really any other situation in life that's like that. So for me, I think that's what's missing. Okay, like fair enough, we can be together in like a chat room, or you can write comments, and also the technology side of it. I've done a couple as well whereby there's been issues, or Facebook will pull it down because of copyright, or YouTube will mute it for one track because of copyright, so it spoils the like flow of the set or something. So I think for DJ set, maybe for live things when you're a band, it's maybe different because you won't have it pulled down due to copyright. But for DJ sets, yeah, I think it's been great in many ways, and it's helped us be connected. But I hope it's not the future. So yeah.
Great. Someone's asked, you have both a hugely varied workload from making music, playing on bands, DJing and tuition. What do you enjoy the most? It's quite a hard question, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy all of them. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but I really do. And there's, I have to say though, there is something, because we're, like Rebecca mentioned, we're both tutors for the sound lab, and there is something so satisfying about teaching when someone kind of really gets a hold of kind of the music that they're making or producing or DJing or whatever it is, and you can see that they're really enjoying themselves or engrossed, and there's something really, really satisfying about that, kind of seeing people creating things. I mean, it's hard to say because they all have sort of different ways of enjoying it, kind of different levels, if it were. But yeah, I think something about teaching is great.
Will I go?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, I really enjoy all of it, but there's a certain level of kind of like fulfillment with doing the teaching things. So obviously playing gigs is amazing, absolutely love it, would love to get back to it one day, hopefully, let's hope. The kind of working with bands, for me, that was actually probably like one of the highlights like ever, because it was just like a unique experience, like traveling around with these people that I'd never met before in a van for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and we were limited by language barrier, but we completely just managed anyway. And I thought that was amazing, because I've never really fully been in a situation where, you know, when you travel everywhere, everyone speaks English, and so it was really nice to like not have that, and to see how much words aren't actually important, if that makes sense. Like, of course they are to communicate, but actually you can manage without words. So that was like, I don't know, I feel like that was quite a big lesson, like a big life lesson in a way. But yeah, I think all in all, if I was to have to pick one of them, it would probably be equal to gigs and teaching, because I really love teaching. I really love meeting amazing young people. I love getting to spend time with them. I love to see them progress. I love to just meet amazing groups of young people and just spend time with them, really. Yeah. What's
Great.
the next question we have?
Next question is, any advice on young DJs on where to find new music?
Well, any advice on young DJs where to find new music? I would say one of the best ways to find music is, for me, to basically like talk to your peers and people that like your friends. So usually I'll find that it's much more useful getting recommendations from people that you really respect musically, whether it's like a friend or another DJ or something like that. So it's really good to check, like, say you have a DJ that you're a massive fan of, they'll sometimes do like charts online. So there's a website called Juno that sells music, so they'll do like Juno charts, and you'll be able to see what they're playing at the moment, listening to radio shows to see what people are playing. Of course, buying music online, Spotify and things like that are great, because obviously they have really good algorithms that recommend you stuff. But if you kind of think about the whole word of mouth thing, then that's a really good way, I think, to find new music. And also it's a good way for you to connect with other people that you have things in common with. So if you set out to try and meet some other people who have the same tastes as you, and you all share music and talk about music, and when you find something that's like, oh, I found this tune, it's amazing, you talk to your friends about it, it's kind of part of the fun. So word of mouth, online obviously, but yeah, like, I personally try to not use any of the kind of automatic algorithm recommendation things. I don't actually have a Spotify account at all. I've never used it. I'm behind on the times. But
Me neither. I don't like Spotify.
no, I don't use it. But I buy records. I still buy vinyl. So obviously for young people getting into it, you don't necessarily need to do that, because it is a much more expensive way to do it. But because of the type of music that I like, it's like jazz and Latin music and funk from like the early 60s. Most of it is not digitally available. So unfortunately, it's a habit that requires saving and being sensible. But there's loads and loads and loads of music that is available digitally that you can find through, sometimes even YouTube's quite good actually. So like, I'll put an album on YouTube and it'll have like a list on the right hand side. Actually, that's sometimes, I've bought records from that before. So anyway,
yeah,
your turn.
No, that's great. I think yeah, like I kind of agree with everything you're saying there. I think like I still also buy records, but I don't. If you don't have a turntable, then it's kind of a big investment to make. And yeah, I guess just the kind of other ones that I sometimes use is just on SoundCloud. Sometimes you can click through lots of profiles, and then often a lot of people do free download. Quite often people do this thing where you have to like comment or something like that, but you know, there's actually a lot of music, a lot of remixes, especially on SoundCloud, and varying quality. You do have to kind of sift through. But in some ways, it's kind of the modern kind of alternative of sifting through records. It's kind of sifting through SoundCloud, listening to loads of rubbish, and then you find some amazing tracks. I guess the other thing I use is Bandcamp sometimes, so that's a really good source. What's nice about Bandcamp as well is, you know, when you're paying for music that it's going directly to the artists who make it, it's really like transparent, and it's great for musicians as well. I use it for my own music and other bands I use, and it's really kind of really good user interface. And yeah, so yeah, Bandcamp is great for that sort of stuff. But I guess it's harder to find music on Bandcamp, and I guess listening to people's mixes, and then if you hear something you really like, trying to work out what that is, that's another way. But also, I think it's good not to try and copy people. So, you were saying before, Rebecca, try and find your own sound. So I think, rather than doing that too much, maybe just doing that now and again, rather than kind of trying to get just what other people are playing. Sometimes as well, I'll just go on like a website of like a shop's website that have samples, and just kind of listen through some new records, kind of something like Boomcat, then just put some random ones on. They have little samples, and you can kind of load up a whole load of them and skip through and just kind of listen to little clips, see if there's anything that takes your fancy. But yeah, I guess that's the main ways that I use to find new music.
Our next question is, apart from COVID, obviously that's the main one, apart from COVID, what do you think are the biggest barriers for people getting into the music industry today, and what's your advice to overcome them? Laurie?
Okay, and that's quite a tricky question. And I think you touched on it before, but I think kind of the gender issue, specific for electronic music and DJing, that has been a real problem in the past, and it's getting better, definitely, but it's still an issue. And I think that, like, especially in the last year or 2 years, there's been kind of a real push for kind of more inclusive people of color, women, kind of these sorts of collectives and DJs have kind of come out, which is amazing. It's actually a really exciting time for kind of dance music, electronic music, I think, because it's diversifying so much, and it's really needed to happen for a long time. But I think that it depends kind of what you mean. It depends sort of how you see the music industry, I guess, because what's also been great is things like Bandcamp have really diversified the need for sort of, before you had these kind of gatekeepers of the sort of dance music world, sort of labels and promoters, and they were sort of the big things that everyone sort of gravitated towards or tried to be on a certain label. Now it's a lot less like that, and actually there's a lot more grassroots with people just doing it themselves, putting on their own nights, putting out their own music. So I guess the industry is changing a lot. So it's hard. It's really hard to know what the kind of biggest obstacle is. I'd say, I guess there's still a question of visibility. So just being able to get your music out to as many people as possible. The trouble with sort of grassroots DIY music making is sometimes it can get a bit unnoticed. It can go under the radar, which is fine if that's what you want to be doing. But if you kind of want to appeal to a wider audience, I guess it's the question of getting your name out there. In which case, I guess for DJs and things like that, is trying to get an agent, which is really important. So try and get a booking agent who can get you gigs and shows, or just getting press and doing PR, doing lots of interviews, doing online mixes for other people. But yeah, I guess now it's kind of getting your name out there is kind of the main thing.
Definitely. I think from me, my answer would be the biggest barriers for people getting into the music industry today. I would honestly say like yourself, because like it's that whole thing, like if you believe you can do anything, you can, and obviously within a certain amount of reason. But you know, if you think about people who decide they want to be an astronaut and go to the moon, okay, it might not happen for everyone, but if you really decide you want to do something and you just go and try and do it, then you can. I mean, I'm sure that both of us wouldn't think that we'd be sitting here having this conversation like 15 years ago when we decided we wanted to start out, and we wouldn't think that we would have just sat and listed all the amazing things that we've achieved. And so, you know, like to anyone else that wants to get into it, definitely yourself, just like your self-confidence can be the biggest barrier. And the advice, try and not listen to the part of your brain that says you can't do it, and just listen to the part of your brain that says you can do it. So yeah. Okay, so next question. How do you approach working with young people? Laurie?
I think my approach to working with young people is just trying to get them as excited as possible, within reason, with the kind of what you're trying to do. So whatever it is, DJing, making music, drumming, kind of getting them really passionate about the kind of the idea, like the sort of the whole aspect of it is really, really important. And I think if you can get people enthusiastic and wanting to learn, then that's kind of the best way of doing it. And not trying to force it, trying to do things on their terms, but get them genuinely excited and sort of everything to do with what you're trying to teach.
I think for me, how do you approach working with young people? I remember that I saw a TED talk, and it was on like the theory of vulnerability, and basically like vulnerability making you strong. And I didn't realize that that was actually the approach that I always took, but when I watched the TED talk, I was like, oh, that's what I've actually been doing. So it's like making yourself like open and making young people realize that actually you're really nervous too, and it's quite nerve-wracking for you to come in and meet a new group, just as it's nerve-wracking for all the young people to come in and meet all the other new young people and meet you and everything like that. So I think, yeah, just like making yourself a bit vulnerable and also having fun is the best. Number one thing is having fun. So yeah. So should we wrap this up now, or should we do?
Yeah, I think we're probably just about at time. So firstly, huge thanks to you both. That was really, really good, very informative and fun. I really enjoyed listening to it. Finally, just to ask yourselves, have you got any gigs or anything coming up yourselves that you want to tell us about, where we can check these out next?
Sadly, no, due to coronavirus. No. We've got the online festival tonight for Electronic Glasgow, which is part of this same thing. So I've got a set that I will be playing tonight.
And where can people check that out if they want to?
They can check it out on the Electronic Glasgow Facebook page, where they will post all the links to the DJ sets, and they'll be up like via Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and all that kind of thing. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks so much, guys. And yeah, for anybody else watching it, just check out Electronic Glasgow's Facebook page, see what else they've got going on this weekend, and have a good one.
Great.
Thanks.